Hello everyone! In this week's video, I'm going to be drawing one of my viewers' original characters. But before we start, I'd like to mention that this video is sponsored by Anime Art Amino. Anime Art Amino asked me if I wanted to hold a contest on their app, and I said yes! If you want to know more about this contest, check out my contest post on my Anime Art Amino. My username is Love to Draw Manga. If you don't know what Amino is, it's a mobile network that lets you connect with people that have similar interests to you. Anime Art Amino lets you share your art with other people that draw anime and manga art. You can also do things like create polls and chat in public chat rooms. To participate in the contest I am hosting on Anime Art Amino, just click the link in the description or pin YouTube comment and follow the prompts to download Amino on iOS or Android. Or you can download Amino by searching your app store, then searching for anime art once you're in. Remember, you can find me by searching my username Love to Draw Manga. Thank you so much Anime Art Amino for sponsoring this video. The character that was randomly picked this time was created by Indigo Soldier. The character's name is Ken. They are 16 years old. Ken is very serious and doesn't talk much. He loves challenging fights but hates bad fighters. So when I first saw Ken, I wasn't totally sure how I wanted to draw him. At first I was just gonna draw him standing with his sword, kinda cool. But then I thought of the idea of him sitting on top of a building with his sword. And he's just kinda sitting up there looking kinda cool. So for this picture, I knew I was gonna want to try to do a more complicated background with 2-point perspective. And because of this, I kinda needed a little bit of help. So I used the 3D models in Clip Studio to assist me. I put the 3D model in a general pose that I wanted for Ken, and then I made it in the perspective that I wanted the picture to be in. This helps me keep things like the character in the background in the same perspective. I always have a hard time making the character in the same perspective as the background, so this helps me make sure that they're both in the same perspective. Then after I do that, I roughly sketch over the 3D model. I slightly tweak the pose a little bit, and then I also did a rough sketch of how I wanted the background to be. So I just have some general building shapes, and so yeah, now we'll get on to the sketching. I didn't have a ton of information about Ken. Like I had a little bit of information, like he's very serious and he doesn't talk much. But that's about it. I didn't really know anything about like his backstory or like what the world's like that he is in. And so I thought it was interesting that he has a sword, but he's wearing very modern clothing. And so I kind of wanted to play on that idea and make him in a really modern setting, even though he has the sword. And so I decided to put him on top of a building because I thought that'd make him look kind of cool. And so yeah, that was kind of my idea. And so I'm having him sit on top of the building, and he's kind of in this kind of relaxed pose, and he's got his arm resting up on his knee with his sword. Right here, his foot wasn't resting on anything, and so I add a little ridge later for his foot to rest on. Later I was like, oh wait, his foot isn't sitting on anything. So Ken was really cool, and I really like drawing him, especially his outfit. I really like drawing his hood and his hair. And now I'm just kind of working on getting a few more details on the building in place, just trying to place everything. I always have a really hard time with backgrounds and just making them look right, especially when it comes to scaling. I always have a hard time scaling objects. I feel like I always make them a little bit too big or too wide, and I don't know, I always have a hard time scaling objects, so I tried to keep that in mind. Like I kind of kept trying to think like, oh well, how wide should the windows be, or I should probably be placing more windows, because I tend to just put too few of windows and then everything just looks too wide and stretched out. And so yeah, I tried to keep that in mind. But the buildings weren't too bad to work on. The rulers in Clip Studio help a lot because my lines kind of snap to the rulers, and so they help a lot. And after I did my kind of rough sketch, I did a cleanup sketch. I didn't record myself doing the cleanup sketch because I wanted to show myself doing the line art. And if I show myself doing the cleanup sketch and the line art, things get kind of redundant. And I didn't want my line art to be too thick, but I felt like I ended up making it about the same width that I usually do. Like I did use a much smaller brush, but at the same time he is also quite a bit smaller, like the camera isn't super zoomed in on him. So I feel like the line art isn't that much thinner than it usually is, but I wanted it to be thinner. But the line art turned out good. I really liked how his hair turned out. I feel like his hair turned out cool and kind of spiky. And I quite like how his face turned out. His face turned out okay, and I feel like everything looks like it's going in the right perspective, hopefully. The arm that is holding the sword I had a little bit of trouble with. Oh, and this hand right here, I'm really proud of this hand because I didn't have to use a reference for it, and I think it's okay to use references, but I'm always proud of myself when I don't have to use references. So I didn't have to use a reference for this hand, and it's in a kind of complicated perspective because we're kind of under the hand, but the hand is also over the building, and yeah, so I'm really happy with that hand. Before I drew that hand, his arm was just kind of going back and we couldn't see the hand, but I felt like that looked really weird. So I brought his arm forward a bit and then made his hand go over the ledge, and I felt like that worked out nicely. Oh, and here I'm working on the shoe. I'm also really proud of these shoes. I actually looked up references and tried my best to make actual detailed shoes because I tend to get lazy with shoes and not add details. But with this one, I wanted to go all out with the shoes because I knew they were gonna kind of be in a really prominent space where you'd be looking at them. And so I wanted to make sure they look nice, and man, were the shoelaces confusing. I had to really think about it because when I was looking at the working on the shoelaces, I wasn't looking at any references. And so the shoelaces were kind of confusing. I had to keep thinking about them, but I did figure them out eventually. So I'm happy about that. So yeah, I really like how the shoes turned out. And then next we have the sword. For the sword, I made it quite a bit shorter than it was in the reference picture. It almost looks like a two-handed sword. I'm not sure what you would call it, but it looks like it's a sword you would use with two hands, and it's really large. But that wasn't really going to work for this picture, so I shrunk down the sword to more of like a long dagger kind of thing, and I thought it looked kind of cool, so I hope the creator of this character is okay with that. I figured since he's a sword character, he probably has multiple swords, so maybe this is one of his shorter swords that's more portable that he just carries around with him. And now I'm working on the background and just cleaning everything up. The buildings in the background actually changed quite a bit. I changed quite a bit of the details on them. I was thinking of adding a satellite on that little building thing. That's how he gets up here. That's the little entrance to get up on top of the building. But I forgot to include the satellite, and I kind of wanted to do that. So now I'm working on the windows in the background, and I kind of felt like maybe I could have gotten away without doing line art for the background. I mean, the line art did make it easier for coloring, but I kind of felt like I could have just gone in with blocks of color, because in the end, I end up giving the background kind of this blurred look to make it look like it's further away. But yeah, so I kind of lost a little bit of the detail, but at the same time, I like how the blurred kind of looks. So, but overall, I'm pretty happy with how the buildings turned out. I feel like they turned out pretty okay. I really like the super tall one. I think that one's my favorite. I feel like it turned out really nicely. There's also this building that kind of looks like a stack of books. I saw a few buildings like that online, and I wanted to include one, and I thought that one looked kind of cool. I wanted to try to give different shapes and not just have them all be the same shape, because buildings can actually be really different shapes. I was looking at a lot of different pictures of them. And now we're going on to the coloring. So I did all of my base coloring while not filming because that's kind of boring. And now I'm just trying to block out where I want my lighting to be. And so the lighting's going to be coming from behind him. So the front of him is kind of in shadow. I felt like that helped make him kind of feel kind of mysterious and cool. And then we have the bright kind of sunset lighting coming onto his back. And so I'm just trying to figure out where I want all the lighting to go and things like that. I also had quite a few gradients to the buildings. And so at the top I do kind of an orangey gradient, and then it goes to a purpley, and then at the bottom of the buildings I do a light blue because like light will tend to reflect off of things, and it probably would be an orange lighting reflecting off the ground and onto the buildings again. But I wanted it to be a blue lighting because like the blue and the orange just looks cool together. And so I have a blue lighting kind of coming up from the road area. And now I'm starting to color the character a little bit more. I'm adding some detail to his hair. I always really like coloring hair. But overall the coloring wasn't too troublesome. I don't know, like I was having kind of trouble with this picture a little bit just because like things just kept feeling slightly not right. I don't know, I kept having to adjust the levels a lot, and the hues, and the saturation, and the contrast, and the opacity of certain layers. I had to keep playing around with it a lot. But overall, I feel like it ends up looking pretty okay. And right now I'm just kind of adding the base shadow for things. And then I go in later and add highlights. Oh, and this fist right here, I'm really proud of that fist over there. I feel like it turned out really nicely. I don't know, I just like how you can actually like see the knuckles and it looks cool. He does wear gloves, and his gloves were the same color as his sleeves on his hoodie. I decided to darken them a bit because I wanted them to stand out from the hoodie, but I also wanted them to stand out from the jeans. So I decided to darken them just a little bit. I hope that's okay. And now I'm working on the wrinkles for the jeans, and I don't know if I talked about this. I know I've talked about it on my Patreon, but I really love coloring clothing wrinkles so much. I used to not like coloring clothes and folds and stuff, but now it's one of my favorite parts. Like, I just love shading wrinkles a lot, and it's so much fun, and it's one of my favorite parts now. I do feel like I can still improve at it quite a bit. I do feel like I'm getting better, but I do feel like I can get better at adding wrinkles and clothing folds. And here I'm adding some slight textures to the building just to make it not look so plain. And so I add a slight wood texture to the windows and a slight stone texture to the stone part at the top that he's sitting on. And I also add a slight texture to the building. And here I'm working on the windows, and for the windows I had yellow, and then I made another layer and set it to add glow. I copied the yellow window layer and set to add glow, and then I applied Gauzation blur to it, and then it kind of made the windows blur a little bit to make them have a glow effect. So that was an easy way to do that. At first I was going to go in and put add glow over each individual window. I'm like, oh, that's going to take a while. But then I thought of that idea, and that was really quick and easy. And now I'm just kind of adding some more of the lighting. I'm trying to make the orange really pop now. So I'm going in with a layer set to add glow, and I use yellow and orange to give the highlights. I didn't really like the highlights on the pants, so I get rid of those. I don't know, they just didn't seem to quite be working. And I'm also working on his eyes. His eyes are really simple, but I really like them. I always kind of like characters that have the really dark eyes and you can't even really see their pupils because they're so dark. Next, I'm adding some more highlights to the clothing just to make the folds and just different parts of the picture stand out a bit. Everything kind of seemed to be kind of mushing together, so I knew I needed to add a little bit more contrast to the picture. So I added some more highlights to kind of help things stand out. So here I'm adding the background, and I was going to draw my own background, but I was getting lazy, and long story short, me and my mom got rear-ended. So things have been kind of crazy. I've been having to go to the chiropractor that's out of town, and we keep having to drive there because it's far away, and my back's been hurting. I'm okay though, my car's okay, nothing serious happened, and I do feel a bit better every day. My back still kind of hurts, but yeah, things have been a little crazy. On here I'm working on the sword. It's really cool. I really like drawing swords because they're super duper shiny. The side that is towards us is the non-sharp side, so I gave it a little bit of kind of what looks like an edge to it, and then the other side is the sharp side, and then I added a ton of highlights to it to make it look shiny. So here's the finished picture of Ken. It might look a little bit different than when I was working on it. And so I didn't record myself doing this, but I adjusted the levels and colors a little bit more after I was done recording. And then I took the whole picture and I slightly tilted it a little bit. And I felt like that helped a lot because, I don't know, things were just feeling a little bit too stiff and not very dynamic. And so I just took the whole picture and tilted it, and I feel like that helped a lot. I really like how it looks after tilting it, and it also makes it so we can see the character a bit more because he fills a little bit more of the page. Before I end this video, I want to say thank you so much to my patrons, including Rachel, Andrew, Bonnie, Cash Money Matt, Julie, Nav from Academy of Games, Robert, Tamalam, Pisatera, Anne, Magic Gamer Dad, Eduardo, AJ, Volrin, Narichan, Titus, Daniel, Daniel, Aaron, and Patrick. Thank you so much for being a patron and for your support. Well, thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next week in my next video. Bye!